Hello, friends. I'm John Stewart. Welcome to Extra Credit with Ricky Quinn. This is our third episode. And if you've missed the first two episodes, I would encourage you to check them out sometime on YouTube or Facebook. Just search Ricky Quinn Clinics and you should go right to the videos. In episode one of Extra Credit, Ricky introduced us to a cool little sorrel named Yaya and how he's approaching groundwork with this coming 3-year-old. And then on episode two, Ricky got in the saddle and showed us how he was working to get Yaya's hind in his front. And it's not the last time you're going to see Yaya. Our plans are to share more videos of Yaya as he progresses, and Ricky will continue his play-by-play. But on this episode and our next one, we're going to introduce you to another cool colt from Lazy U Quarter Horses named Steve. So let me bring on Ricky to talk about Steve. Hello, Ricky. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you today, John?
Doing great. So we had some really nice feedback from the first two episodes with Yaya. I think people are really enjoying your play-by-play, Ricky.
I think so too. I got a lot of even private messages on my phone of people saying how much they enjoyed it. So that's good.
That's great. Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about Steve before we introduce everybody to Steve. Tell me a little bit about Steve. I know he's a 4-year-old.
Yeah, he's a 4-year-old gelding. He's out of by the stud Don't Look Back that the Olsons have. He goes back to Dual Ray, and he's out of a Krogman's mare from up north.
What's his
Um,
disposition like, Ricky?
he's a really unique kind of horse. He Sarah, when we raised him here, bought him as just a little. He was just a few months old on his mom's side, and we brought him and his mom here and raised him here and weaned him here. And he was the kind of colt that even just as a half a year old or in there, horses would come up to the feed bunk and he'd turn around and start double barreling them and kicking everybody off the feed bunk. And so he's a kind of horse that has a lot of confidence. He definitely has a lot of confidence, and that can kind of be a tough thing to work with at times because of that confidence that he has. It can turn into being a little bit pushy, um, and he's been able to be that way since he was really little. And so that's been a little bit of a challenge. And he's the kind of horse that kind of puts his head into a lot of trouble. Um, Really pushy with his nose. You go to pet him on the forehead, and he just take his nose and just push on you really hard, almost like punching you with his nose. Really different kind of horse, really unique. The kind that I've had horses like him before where he's pushy with that nose, and you go to bump him on the nose to drive him off, and it almost makes it worse. He just keeps coming back harder. And so he's a horse that you've really got to allow him to think his way through, really allow him to think his way through things and find the other side with his mind. He's not a horse that you really do a bunch of physical things with and then
Mm-hmm.
he understands it. You really have to, and sometimes you got to put quite a bit of pressure on this horse and keep the pressure there until that switch flips in his mind and he turns loose and comes through. Whereas a horse like is a lot more sensitive. You just kind of look at him cross-eyed, and he's wondering what he did wrong and wanting to please so much different than Steve. Steve could really care less.
That's great. Well, let's bring Steve on video so we can watch him in action here.
Okay.
So this is back in January out in Arizona, Ricky. Introduce us and tell us what you're doing here.
Okay. Well, just the typical thing, the groundwork. Going to be working on the hind in the front. One thing that you'll find with Steve that's going to be a lot different than and this is why we're doing two videos, you guys, of different horses, because this horse is a completely different horse than what is. And so is the kind of horse that um, I could allow him to be a lot straighter and reach that front to the inside. And this is a horse that if I go ahead, I get the straightness in a different way. I'm looking for him um, to really catch his hind up to his front. So rather than like with trying to bring the front to me so much, I'm just going to allow this horse to be where he is. See, he's pretty discombobulated there, and he really has to find his feet and get back to straighten out and bring the front through. So, like right here, see I stay in the well and he
Yeah.
really has to have a lot of bend in him. I don't necessarily want that much bend in him, but this horse, in order for him to free up, I need to have uh, quite a big bunch of bend in him right there, and then it hustles his hind over to get it square so that he can then straighten up and come through. It really fits this horse differently today. Again, like I said, this horse doesn't look the same today in how I go about things. But you see, can you rewind it just a sec, John?
Absolutely.
So there was a spot here where this horse kind of scrambled through there when I brought his front, and you'll see that this horse uses his head for everything. His body doesn't really want to follow his nose. So right here, see that?
Yep.
Head up. That is a result of him not finding his hind, but it's also, go ahead and rewind it again, John. But it's also because he can't find his hind and he can't bring that front through, he'll brace up through his head and neck. You can see it right here.
Yeah.
As he's come right there. You can see the same brace. He just raises his head a little. So he's not really ready at all. He's a little different than where with right here.
There's his head. Yeah.
So with you can kind of help him through that a little bit. This horse, you can try to help him through, but he doesn't turn loose to you the same way. So you almost got to kind of put this horse into a little bit of a bind, like a lot of horses you do. He's not like unique or anything. But this horse, I'll kind of allow him to be in that bind and stay there a little bit and have some of that trouble and allow him to think his way through that spot and not help him through quite as much as maybe I would some other horses. Yeah. And really watch the outside hind on this horse, because he'll really reach that outside hind
there.
And then he'll get to where he'll start kind of backing up. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And that back up is him clearing the other hind leg. So going this way, I don't know if he'll do it here, but there's the hind, and he backs up, and he rolls that right hind leg back. Right? Let's rewind that just a sec, John.
Absolutely.
So we'll come through here.
Watch
his right hind. Watch his right, and then he'll clear the left hind before we make the turn. Watch the right. Watch the right, wait for him to set up, there's the left hind. And it gives then room for the front to come through. That was something Jayton Lord got me onto, not so much in the groundwork, but the riding.
Can we watch that one more time, Ricky?
Yeah, it was about to happen again, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Right there. You were talking about Jayton Lord showing you.
Yeah, Jayton talked to me. I asked him a question on in riding a horse. Jayton, what's the difference between turning on a cow and the spin? And he said turning on the cow, what he focuses on, or this was a few years ago, and it might have changed by now, but what he said at that time to me in just a few words was, to turn on a cow, you want him to clear the inside hind, and to spin, he worries about the rhythm in the front end. And I know there's more to it than that, but that is the gist of it. So watch the hind. Watch how this horse will kind of get way back.
Yep.
And this horse struggles to get back. Some of it is his mind, some of it's his conformation, and maybe they compound each other to show the trouble in him. But him getting back, I'm really setting him up really there. See that? See how nice that front comes through when he does? See, he's already preparing to do it again.
Look how comfortable he is.
Yeah. And his shoulder's drifting to the outside a little bit more than what I would like. But this is one that he's such a pushy kind of a horse that I really want to be careful not to allow him to the inside too much and start to take over again. I really want him to focus on, even if he's a little bit out of whack, the shoulders to the outside a little, to say, you slow your front down and you bring your hind to the outside.
Got it.
Because to help him too much, it just doesn't, it's almost, he wasn't spoiled as being raised, but it's almost like he just acts like a spoiled brat, See how his front end is too far out. But I just stay and I say, you get your hind over there. You get that right hind over and you get back. You find this. You stay there and find this. There he's about to find it. There he found it. And then I let him come through. See, so it's a completely different situation than yeah. Completely different. But it's still groundwork, you know?
Yep.
And as I go, I'll kind of, and I'm offering, if he wants to kind of straighten out and bring that front in and roll that hind to the outside, I invite it all day long. But I'm waiting for him to situate himself so that he can do it. Like I said, he's just in a different spot than what yeah is.
When here's you're offering it.
Mm-hmm. See, and I want that left front to come towards me.
Yep.
I'm in there a little aggressive in the well, but
There.
right there. So I'm going to get that front to where it starts coming towards me a little different. I'm just going to roll the hind, bring the front, right? So that I'm going to start, see, he's preparing right there. See it?
Mm-hmm.
See, now it's easier for him to bring the front. See him prepare? There it is. Now I'm going to hustle him a little bit and say, hey, once you make that turn, get forward. There's my, see how little I'm doing? See how easy that is for him? Now hustle. And that, see him kind of throw his head up and jump sideways and be tight. He doesn't really know how to bring that front through and then leave. So for me, and if I'm going to work livestock, he's got to be able to have that.
Yeah, you want him to be prompt on that.
Yeah, that's why I'm practicing it. Mm-hmm. There's a nice one. See the life that's in it? See him? There it is.
Yep.
See how nice that is? Now, getting him, he's a little stuck there in the transition from once he makes the turn to go, but that's okay. That's just another piece to work through. Like my friend Chuck Reed says, whenever you run into a little spot like that in one, or in life, you know, we try to call that more of an opportunity than a problem. It's another opportunity to work at something. So he's really trying to think his way through and prepare himself.
Well, let's go back and watch that a little more, Ricky, because I know you're about to finish groundwork and get in the saddle on this one. So let's go back. I really like. I mean, there's so much stuff that I'm missing here, Ricky, and that's the whole purpose of us doing these videos. Is when when I'm actually standing there watching you work a horse, I'm being quiet and letting you go to work. So here's a chance for us to ask you questions as you're going through this. But talk about just when you're getting the hind there. I really could use some more narrative on when you're just wanting to get him going. I mean, like as soon as he makes that decision, I think it's in here just a minute when you really get behind him and get him going.
You mean to bring the life up after he's made the turn, John?
Bring the life
like
up.
right here, right there?
There it is.
Yeah. Okay. You want me to talk about how I'm getting that done? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, talk about how you're getting it done, but also just, I mean, like, I think people watching this, when should we be looking at that? Because that's what you want out of this horse in the long term. And so, what do you?
Okay, so before I asked for that, right?
And I'll go back to that one more time just so we can get to that.
Okay.
Here.
So before I asked for it, John, I spent a little time allowing him to find his feet.
Right.
So if he's one thing that I do that I've learned, I can't hurry him through anything until he has a little bit of the fundamental. It's really tough to speed something up when they don't know what you want.
Great.
Right?
Yep.
And then once they have an idea of what you want and they can balance themselves, then you can start to work at speeding up the maneuver. So I didn't really speed anything up. And a person doesn't want to misunderstand this, but misunderstand would be the right way to say it. Is that but there's a time and a place that if he's not moving when I ask him to, and I firm up with him to get some effort. So there's a difference between in speed or quicker movement and life, right?
Got it.
So the difference is I can get life in a horse and he can be moving at a snail's pace because he's giving me a lot of mental effort, right? Most of the time people only see effort in a horse through the physical side, and that's them putting more life in their body.
Right.
But a lot of times if he's thinking and really trying to figure something out, how engaged is he mentally? Where is he inside? We all know what it's like to work hard at something and want to get the right answer. And some people may not show any kind of expression, but inside their stomach is turning with anxiety because they're working so hard mentally to try to please whoever it is that's asking the question, right? And
Right.
some people are going to be really anxious and they're going to be sweating and they can't sit still and they cry and everything else trying to give you that answer. And so it's recognizing in there when that horse is really giving you a lot of effort mentally, right? So that is one of the pieces that you'll see that it doesn't take me a whole lot physically to get things done with my horses. Like right there was a big brace in his body and he was
Hmm.
stuck, but boy was he trying to give me everything he had to figure that out. I didn't have to do a whole lot to get him to move off of me, right? Because I've tapped into his effort. I can draw on that in his mind and I can get him to where he really puts a lot of effort into things for me when I ask for it, right? And that's a missing link with a lot of people, whether they're on the ground or they ride, is they don't know how to tap into the horse's mind and really get the horse engaged. And if they do, what they do is they tend to be really hard on the horse with their
Hmm.
hands and their legs or whatever's in there, right? Or whatever's in their hand. And the result gets to the horse can then end up being scared of the person. So
Yeah.
now the horse is putting effort in, right? You're getting that mind towards trying, but the horse doesn't feel good in the process. And so there's a balance there with all of that. Okay. And so when I go in, John, and I go to get that life of what you're asking about in that horse, in that transition from rolling the hind, bringing the front, and then going forward to have some life in that front end, um, that's that spot where he knows that I'm not kidding. That when I step in here, I need you to try, and as long as you're trying, I will back off and allow you to try. But as soon as you quit trying, I'm gonna step back in and we're gonna talk about it.
Well, and I think, and I'm going to roll, I keep rolling it back, but I'm going to roll it back one more time. All my attention has been on the horse and watching Steve through this, but I think it's important for people like me when we watch this video with you doing groundwork. I'm going to focus on you now and your technique, because when we see people do groundwork, there's people who just are throwing their arms all over the place, and there's some people who just literally stand there still, like they're and then obviously we know people who just work a lunge line with a whip or whatever, and they're just scaring the horse. But in your mechanics here, I mean, it's amazing to me just how uh, direct you are and how Steve is so. I mean, everything through the life of that rope, you're giving him that float right there. But talk about the technique of what you're doing here, Ricky. I mean, obviously, you started this horse in June, and this is January, so he's done some groundwork with you. But just talk about your technique here, so we can kind of learn from that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm trying to
Like
get
right
him.
there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him as light as I possibly can. Right. It's no different than when I'm riding him. Um, I'm trying to get him hooked on to more of what my body is doing rather than what the lead rope is doing. That's
Got it.
key.
Yep.
And I have to have him mentally paying attention to me in order
Because
for
right
that
there,
to
he's
work.
so hooked onto your hand. It just, I love watching that. Uh,
Hmm.
and like you said, you're doing the same thing you do in the saddle. Uh,
Yeah, trying to, right? Yeah, trying to have the same feel. It's not the same because I'm on the
yep,
ground, but
same
I'm trying
feel.
to have the same feel. Hmm. Yeah, and there's a balance point too, John. As you guys watch this video, you'll see times where I advance maybe towards my back cinch or towards his hip bone, and
Hmm.
there will be times where maybe I stay up at the shoulder or the stirrup. There's a balance point in livestock, and when you get ahead of the balance point, it'll tend to get them to want to slow down, and when you get behind it, it'll kind of want them to speed up or roll away or whatever, wherever you want to be, right? Get them to yield. And so if a person really watches this a few times, right there, I have to get behind the
Yep.
balance point to send him forward, right? I was too far ahead.
What's
But
amazing to
where
me
they
is the
get
horse can
people
sort
so
that out. I mean, to us as humans, we're like, that's not
well,
that big of a
well,
space.
John, no, John, you're right, but I'm gonna say something, right? And this is what the human does to themselves, is they say the horse can sort that out, but the human, whatever. I mean, come on, man. They're a horse, right? Um, people will say how smart a horse is or how smart a coyote is, right? Or these things. And I had somebody tell me one time, it's like, a coyote isn't that smart. They just run off of instincts. I mean,
Mm.
we're sitting here watching a video. I haven't seen a horse make computers and videos and stuff yet, right? So where I'm going with that is don't try to view the horse as being intellectual like the human being is. Don't do that to yourself because it's
Okay.
completely different. What the horse is that the human is not is the horse is very consistent and they're very, very simple. And the
Mm.
human is not. And that is the thing that gets us in trouble with horses. And if we could learn to be more consistent and a lot more simple in how we think, right? Of the things that bother us and don't bother us and how we control our emotions and things, you will be a lot more supportive to your horse and you'll find that your horse then will come to you and be a lot more consistent with what you want them to do. And that's really it. I mean, there's that's there's not much more psychology to it than that.
Those are some good. Okay, so Ricky, as we get to the end of this groundwork here, tell me what you're doing right here, right there.
Really just trying to get him focused, right? Because as I go to reach for him, he backs up, and then I grab a hold of the halter, and he pushes his nose, and his ears are coming up, and he's not really turning loose to me and staying in the moment. He leaves the moment a lot. You can tell it in his ears, right there. See, and I go to walk
Mm-hmm.
off, and he doesn't really. He leaves first, and so it causes that delay.
I want to watch this again because some people, if I'm standing on the rail, I'm like, oh, look at this special bond that he has with this horse. He's just showing him so much
Yeah,
love.
no, he's being a little bit of a shit there. It's the truth, right? And just a little bit. And it used to be multiplied by 100. See how he delays there? He's fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm kind
Yeah.
of making a half joke, Don't get me wrong. He's fine, but he darn sure has a very short attention span, And if he could pay attention a little longer and really turn loose emotionally to it, his life would get a lot easier. He wouldn't have to carry those braces. So watch as I reach for him how he'll back up. Right, he backs up right there. I pull him forward. He tosses his nose. His ears are looking through me. Now they're back. Right, now they're going to look through me again to whatever's happening behind me. And I'm just rubbing on him, trying to get him centered and with me.
Mm.
There, he's centered, turned loose, committed to me, feeling of me. Now I lose him. Right, and see how straight he is coming through, and it kind of causes him to be a little stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the stuff that a person, when you catch them in the pasture and you go to lead them to the barn or whatever, all that stuff is taking place the whole time from the start when you catch them. That happens actually when you walk by the corral.
Mm.
A lot of people don't think they have much influence on a horse unless they have a hold of the lead rope, and that's not true. How they look at you when you go by that corral matters. You could go by the corral and they could want to go to the backside of the corral or come and push on the fence. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got one horse that I'll kind of walk out there to catch him and he'll nicker just a little bit. That sure is a nice feeling, when you get that. So just paying attention to a lot of those little things that are going on in the horse and where they are mentally and where they are emotionally. And that's why we do our groundwork.
Well, that's great. I'm going to rewatch this several times. I know some of our viewers will do the same thing, Ricky. It's great to hear you give a play-by-play as you do the groundwork, and there's just so much we're missing, and it's great to have you kind of show us and point us out uh, what you're working on. So let's go ahead and bring this video to a close. Our next video will be you working Steve in the saddle. So once again, if you've missed the first couple of episodes, I would encourage you to hop on to Ricky Quinn Clinics. These videos are archived on Facebook. Uh, if you've got one of those fancy TVs and you got YouTube on your TV, you can look up Ricky Quinn and find him on there. And then always look at Ricky Quinn Clinics. It'll post his schedule so that you can actually go audit a clinic or go ride with Ricky this year. Ricky, you're doing about one clinic a month right now. So uh, in addition to your work there, in Nebraska. So encourage people
Yeah.
to go check out Ricky Quinn Clinics. Pick a date, go to a clinic. Would love to see you out there on the road. And Ricky, until next time, uh, always appreciate your time.
Thank you, John.
All right, talk to you soon.